Let's Get To presents
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Here come the Astros, burning with desire. Here come the Astros, breathing orange fire. Here come the Astros, with winning on their mind. Here come the Astros, number one every time. Go, go, Astros. We want Houston! We want Houston! Alvarez hits a high drive, center field. Beerling's back! This game is turned upside down!
And the pitch is lifted to right by Castellanos. Long run for Tucker over toward the line and foul territory. Makes the catch, and the Houston Astros do it again. 2022 World Series champions.
And now, Go Astros. Astros baseball from three guys who've been there since Art Howe had hair.
Here come the Astros, breathing orange fire. Here come the Astros.
And welcome everybody back to Go Astros. I've been on the go, but I'm finally home for a second. And we've got Brian Arbor back. And unlike Jose Altuve, we've got Andy off the IL. So all three of us are at full strength. How's everybody doing? Brian, you doing all right?
Things are good up here. Yes, my kid is going to camp this week, so sleepaway camp. So I get to act like an adult for 2 weeks.
Wow, that's fun. Andy, you have been at sleepaway camp. You and I had a great time in Hartford. How you feeling this morning?
I'm tired. Tired of travel, tired of United Airlines, tired of airports, tired of mountain people.
All of a sudden, I just came up with, I just was reminded of the Counting Crows. Like, she's tired of life. She's tired of something around here. Look, guys, Astros are coming back home for the first time since the All-Star break. And in that time, they went 6-3 on a road trip. Again, a road trip in which 60% of the team were the Houston Astros and 40% of the team were the Sugarland Space Cowboys. Brian, you wrote I'm not going to say uncharacteristically optimistic because you're always optimistic, but you seem to really lean into the optimism on your Substack this morning. What are your thoughts on this 6-3 road trip?
Hey, they won 6 out of 9. That's nice, and it's also good for the team. Good for the team. Good for their chances, and nice to see them win. At the same time, I don't know if you guys felt this in Hartford or in your travels, or Andy, you were too much in the mountains drinking moonshine to figure this out. But man, if you talk to Astros fans, it sure didn't feel like they thought they were winning a lot.
Yeah, actually, we did pick up on some of that, and I mean, they basically won 60% of their ball games. That would be a 600 record if they protracted that over the season.
I think this is a good thing. I was pleased with the win yesterday, but man, just looking through, not just my social media, but my offline sort of conversations, it's a lot of, I'm real frustrated by this. I'm real annoyed, potentially angry, and hey, winning ball games is a good thing. And baseball happens, which means you can't just assume that it's it's a SEC SoCon challenge just because you're playing a bad baseball team. Bad baseball teams win about a third of the games, which is, hey, what happened on this road trip?
Yeah, Andy, I think people, if Astros fans really want to be honest with themselves, they're more upset with the Tampa Bay Rays than they are with the Houston Astros. It's just they're directing their frustration at our local 9.
I can understand the frustration. I mean, for me, it's a lot of stops and starts and sputters, and we feel like a car that we were sold this Ferrari at the beginning of the season, and before we even got it off the lot, it was like, well, you don't get 2 tires, you get 2, but not 4. And also the engine needs a tune-up really bad, and every time you fix one thing, if you've owned a German engineered car, an Italian car in this point, it's like something else breaks, and it's really expensive to fix, and we're not winning in an impressive enough fashion, I think, for our fan base. We haven't had that big string of games in a row. I think except for May, we won 8 in a row, I believe. But it's been win 2 here, lose a couple there, win 3 here, win, lose one. And it's just, there's a lot of stops and starts and sputters. And I think we're all very anxious for the engine to start running correctly. I think what everybody expects is it's going to start running more correctly tonight if Yordan Alvarez is activated and starting either as DH or in left field. And then it gets a little bit better maybe in the next week after that if Jose Altuve comes back healthy and hitting the way he needs to. And then you're not worried about Greg Kessinger getting a start. You're not worried about Bly Madriz playing or being on the roster at all. You can go back to worrying about John Singleton and ignore everything he's ever done in the major leagues and pretend that he's going to be the answer, because there's nothing better than a player who has no defensive position who hits in AAA. That's the answer.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, I think he's right to an extent. I think none of the wins in the season so far have been pretty. A lot of them have been grinds, and a lot of them have been the Astros making it harder on themselves than they have to be. I mean, Andy and I talked a bunch, and I want to get into this a little bit later on the show, but Pena is this guy that carries a bad at bat onto the field, and then he'll make an error that matters. So it does feel like we're just sort of trying to ice skate uphill a little bit, to quote Blade, the vampire hunter.
When you can throw one of those reference into that movie, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. No, that's absolutely the case. And there were no blowout wins. I think they won a game by 3 on this road trip, and that was the largest win. Obviously, one of the concerns is they're using the leverage guys in the bullpen too much. Part of my thought on that is, well, they kind of have to because they keep playing close games. And, I appreciated the inning we got from Seth Martinez yesterday. I appreciated the inning we got from Rafael Montero on Saturday. I was a little less comfortable with those than the Brian Abreu innings, for obvious reasons. So, yeah, I mean, that's all part of it. And obviously the biggest thing, right, is this team won 106 games last year, and they're on pace to win 91 this year. And I think we all think they're slightly better than 91 wins. We can expect that they'll, we got reasons to think they'll do better in the next 62 than in the first 100. But they're not going to win 106 games. They're not, as you said, we're mad at the Rays because they got swept by the Rangers. The Rangers are ahead of us, and this is not a, comfortable, middle distance run to the AOS title. They've got to come from behind. So again, hey, there's lots of good reasons for this, but the Astros improved their chances of making the playoffs over this series. Over this road trip. And they did this by A, winning games, and B, having the Yankees not win games, which obviously they can't control the Yankees, but that was very helpful to the Astros efforts. And I don't know, maybe it's because I talked to enough Yankees fans up here, but we're doing better than they are. And well, they're in a real panic right now. Cheers, Astros fans.
Yeah, that's the difference between being frustrated as an Astros fan and being miserable as a Yankees fan, which seems to be the default setting lately.
I mean, think about it. Andy and I spent a ball game Saturday with a Yankee fan, and he would just randomly, unprompted, bring up how awful the season's been. I mean, we could be talking about what color the sky is. Yeah, well, the Yankees aren't hitting, so what do I care? I mean, it was bad. It was definitely rough. You mentioned Montero. I do think
segment brought to you by Schadenfreude.
Exactly. But I guess also going back to the point, though, the Astros hit really well for a while, and then they didn't. And in the games where they hit really well, they didn't pitch really well, but then they pitched really well. And it does feel like we're waiting for all of it to sort of come together on a consistent basis. Andy, do you have a chime in on that?
I mean, that's been the story of the season, right? It's not, there's 3 aspects of baseball on the field: defense, pitching, and hitting. We don't seem to be doing any of them at the same time well. We still pitch very well. We're still a top 5 pitching staff in Major League Baseball, unless something dramatic happened over the weekend, which I don't think it did. Offensively, we still have plenty of games where we hit well and we score runs. Hasn't happened in a week, but it did happen, to Brian's point, in the Angels series.
Thank goodness.
And we'll go 5, 7, 10 games playing really, really good defense, and then we'll have a game where Bregman and Pena can't hit Abreu, if there were money involved with it, which there kind of is because they're professionals. And it's just that's how baseball goes sometimes. I think we're all very anxious to just watch this team put it together. To a point Brian made early, I don't like the idea that we have a bunch of leverage guys throwing a lot of innings against the A's. At the same time, we have Brian Abreu, Rafael Montero to a larger extent, and a couple of other guys, Hector Neris, who have some things they need to figure out on the mound. And the same goes with our starting pitchers, Javier, Hunter Brown,
who both look like they took steps.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. You don't want them to pitch so much, but guys like Montero to a larger extent, but Abreu to a lesser extent, do need to get some innings where they figure some stuff out. And I think we saw some positive signs this week because, the games were close, but they were still 3-1, 5-. I mean, our bullpen wasn't giving up big leads and blowing games. That there was a lot of encouraging things from this week. Would I have liked to see it against better competition? Yeah, but we're about to have better competition. So we'll see how well it translates. But, I think it's just more frustration. And to Brian's point in his article this morning, the frustration is not based on anything that's really happened on the field. It's based on what we expected to happen, which is, a lot of how life goes. I know a lot of people in a different world that set narratives on movies about what they think is going to happen. And when it didn't happen in the movie, they get mad that it didn't happen. Comic book fans are especially notorious about this. Star Wars fans also. This is what should have happened. Didn't happen. You guys are horrible. And I hate Kathleen Kennedy.
Right. Okay. I was like, for a second, I thought, do you really? Because I actually think she's pretty good at her job. The Rangers are coming to town, Brian. And again, I think, Brian, you're correct to say that we cannot scout baseball like we scout football. But the Rangers are limping in here to a degree. They've lost Seager, likely for the season. Obviously, DeGrom, other hitters are questionable. I think they missed their game yesterday, but they could play today. But if we've all heard Dusty say the same thing, and then they're gone for 2 weeks. But I still don't believe in a must-win series in August. Your thoughts on just how much importance we should play on the next 3 games against the Rangers?
Yeah, the only thing they must do, I think, is win one of the games.
Yeah,
they don't win one of the games, they're 6 out with 57 to play, which is not impossible, but it's a really big hill to climb. 4 out with 59 to play would be more manageable. Obviously, winning the series, and look, there's more urgency to this series because A, it's the team you're chasing, and then B, could it come down to a tiebreaker on who wins the AL West? Yes. And under the new collective bargaining agreement, they don't play game 163 anymore because that would be too much fun. Instead, it's based on who wins the season series. So
you're telling me the silver boot could actually matter?
For the first time in a long time, the silver boot could actually matter. I did see the silver boot when I was there in April, and they had not added plaques, the little plaques around it for the last 3 seasons. So, it's kind of like LSU and Arkansas play for this giant trophy towards the end of the season. And I always tell how the LSU season is going based on whether they care about that trophy or not. And in the best LSU season, they left the trophy on the field. They forgot it was there. So if we don't hear any references to silver boot, which we haven't the last several years, it's a good thing. One more thing to the Astros' favor, Nate Eovaldi is not going to pitch on Tuesday. They're going to skip his start. His velocity was down last term. So that's, a potential individual advantage for the Astros who, hey, you're throwing Brandon Bilak tonight, who is probably their 5th best of their 5th starters. So, won't be a classic series in that sense that you won't get sort of the best against the best, but obviously an important series.
Andy, let's talk about those 2 guys though. JP France and Brandon Bilak. At what point do we just accept the fact that these guys are gamers and maybe can pitch at this level at this point? Because they've actually pitched well against all manner of competition in this year. And I think have done at least mid-level, 3rd or 4th starter level work.
Yeah, it kind of is what it is, right? So your stats tell you who you are. I think a lot of Astros fans have been waiting for the other shoe to drop with both these guys because they're not heralded prospects. They are not as good as Jose Urquidy is perceived to be. We could argue about his actual numbers or how, the potential that Luis Garcia could have been or Lance McCullers, and they're filling the role of those three guys basically. They are our starters tonight and tomorrow night against John Gray, who was a little bit banged up evidently in his last start, but the Rangers are pitching him anyway and not skipping him. And TBD for Tuesday.
Oh, TBD's good though.
TBD
Actually, he'll be some guy. He'll be some guy from Round Rock that has never pitched that the Astros will struggle against because we've all seen
TBD usually beats us. So
we've seen that movie before.
There are plenty of seasons in baseball where a guy outperforms his FIP. And that's what both of these guys are doing. I think France has progressively gotten better, and Bilak allows a lot of base runners, but he manages to get out of it. And all I care about is that he manages to continue to do that for 59 more games. And then he can regress back to his norm, and I'm okay with that. But we need him at least for the next week until Dana Brown figures out what he's going to do with the trade deadline. But yeah, they've both exceeded expectations. I know we've said it a number of times. And I think you can count on, I hate the quality start metric because it's a kind of six innings, right. 3 runs is not a great outing in my world, but in modern baseball and 2023 baseball, a starter who can give you, 3 runs or less and set you up for an opportunity to win, they're doing their jobs. And there's not a whole lot of room to complain about either one of them have done. Especially JP France, who nobody was counting on this year. I can think of one start where he just completely crapped the bed. But other than that, he's been very, very competent. And it's, again, expectations. The Astros have been spoiled because he's not Justin Verlander. He's not Garrett Cole. He's not Charlie Morton. He's not Dallas Keuchel. Hell, he's not even Wade Miley. But Wade Miley up until September of 21, not the other guy.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it is what it is at this point. We need help in the rotation, but those guys have done yeoman's work, and there's not a whole lot of reason to expect that all of a sudden it's going to get bad unless you care about that FIP number.
I'll make another comp. They're Jake Odorizzi on his good days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would take that all day. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Which is, hey, none of us wanted to see Jake Odorizzi in the playoffs. He only pitched when we got blown out in that game against the Red Sox, and didn't mind when they traded him last year at the trade deadline for relief help that really didn't matter. But hey, Jake Odorizzi provided a floor for this team, and both Bilak and France have provided a floor for this team. And both like Jake Odorizzi, these guys kind of fight. They get a couple guys on, they're not going to sort of give up or let things continue to fight. And can you do that? And I kind of like both the moxie I see from both of these guys, that they are, they know they're not going to strike you out, but they're going to make competitive pitches. They're going to stuff there. They're not going to let things snowball on them. And again, hey, do I expect 7 innings, no runs, and 10 strikeouts from Bilak tonight? No. Do I expect 6 innings and 3 runs? Yeah. Will I take that tonight? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There's only a few rotations in Major League Baseball that would turn down these two guys, and you can count them on probably 3 fingers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, I think you mentioned the moxie and the grit, and I almost wonder, like, JP France has been a journeyman minor leaguer. I think that's the kind of thing that keeps you sticking around, is maybe the kind of thing that can get you through those innings. And I do think we saw positive signs out of Hunter Brown and positive signs out of Fromber. And even in the start where Brown gave up the 3 runs in the first inning, he did not pitch poorly after that. The 4th run he gave up was kind of a weird situation, but I do think that there are signs that they are coming around a little bit. The next question we'll start with Andy on Brian, but Andy, last week, Brian and I kind of talked about, all right, what we thought the needs were for trade deadline. We're going to do an episode to wrap up the trade deadline on next week, so we won't have an episode the day of. But my question to you, in the last week that you've seen the team, have the needs changed for you, or where do you think your priority of needs are for the trade deadline?
I think the timing is tricky for Dana Brown, before I answer that question, because you're going to, in theory, get Alvarez back today. maybe tomorrow if we're being super cautious, but this week. Altuve should have been back by now or should have started his rehab assignment by now, and he hasn't. So there's a little bit of concern there, but let's say you have him back by the 31st. I think offensively, you go back to we need another left-handed bat. We have a glut of right-handed outfielders. We need to figure out some sort of movement there, and I think Dana Brown has alluded to that. For me, the bigger need has shifted to a starting pitcher. I think we need another 3 or better kind of starting pitcher. I'm encouraged by Hunter Brown. And again, this guy's a rookie, and there were going to be some struggles, and he hasn't pitched poorly. He just hasn't pitched to a 1.21 ERA like he did last year, kind of coming out of nowhere. That's not an uncommon story in Major League Baseball. A guy with good stuff who nobody's seen before does well. He's not regressed necessarily. He's got things to learn, and the league has learned some stuff about him. It's an adjustment period.
And not to interrupt, but if you compare his rookie season to Fromber's rookie season, I'll take Hunter's rookie season all day.
100%. Javier, I think he's made an adjustment, and I'm very encouraged by his last couple of starts. So there's some improvement there, but there's enough question marks. I don't know that anybody in the front office is comfortable going into a playoff series, a 5-game series, 7-game series with Fromber, and I don't know. Let's see what we get versus Fromber and another a Dylan Cease type. Now, I think that is pie in the sky because I think the asking price is going to be too high. There's a lot of teams in the race, but I still think the priority at this point has got to be a starting pitcher who can pitch effective innings, followed by a left-handed bat who can play corner outfield and maybe first base in a pinch.
Brian?
Yeah, I wrote this on my Substack last week. The priority is starting pitching. And one of the reasons for that is because right now your starting rotation in a playoff series is Fromber. That's good. Christian Javier, who we think's getting better, Hunter Brown, who we think's getting better, and all that moxie from JP France.
Right.
Which again, my comparison to JP France is Jaco to Rizzi. You can see why you need to sort of improve that. Another reason is it would be nice to limit the innings of Hunter Brown and Christian Javier, and you may want to just plan a 15-day vacation if your hotel room in Cancun is still available. The Astros could reserve that for a month. Send them down there just to get some R&R, not to throw much. Come back, could do something like that, or go to a 6-man rotation, which would limit their innings and hopefully keep them fresh. Obviously, one thing to worry about, of course, is, hey, last year at the trade deadline, we were 99.99% confident, or that's what the Fangraph odds said, the Astros were going to make the playoffs. This year, we're more like 75% confident.
Yeah.
They still have to get to the playoffs. And again, it's part of why they're pitching their leverage relievers so much is they're playing a lot of close games and they have to win them. So another bullpen arm would be part of it. I don't think they need a left-handed bat. It'd be nice. But the thing is, if you get a left-handed bat, who are you sending down? Because right now in the outfield, you're getting good production you're getting contributing production from your 3 guys who are playing 2 spots in left field and center field. And one of those spots should go away when Gordon gets activated later today, and he gets in the lineup on an everyday basis. So could they get one of those? Yeah. Would I criticize them for it? No, not at all. Is that the priority? I would only criticize it if they only got a left-handed bat and didn't get pitcher. I'd have relief pitcher ahead of that.
I do think we need to push again. I think we need to start talking about Chaz the way he's played this year. He's been the AL Player of the Week. He's probably the best offensive player active on the team right now. So I think we can move beyond sort of contributing thing. Andy.
Just to kind of piggyback on what Brian said, the reason I still prioritize the left-handed bat as kind of the second need is that while I understand that Greg Hessinger, David Hensley, and Bly Madriz aren't long for this world, this is a really weak bench if you add Corey Julks and Jake Myers to that. Julks is the best player out of that group by far. You're going to replace one of them with Jordan today. You're going to replace one of those guys with Jose Altuve. Those are great upgrades. That still leaves you 2 guys really inexperienced sitting on your bench for potential pitch hit opportunities. There's still this weird usage pattern around Yainer Diaz, so you can't really count on him being an available bat. And when you get in a playoff series, every roster spot kind of counts. So that's kind of where I come from on that. I do see your point, but it's kind of there's an opportunity to get better on the bench. The Astros had a better bench last year. They had a better bench in 21, in 19.
Yeah.
And I mean, so that's
and they addressed the bench at the trade deadline last year.
But having, I mean, like I would love to see Aledmus Diaz still on the bench right now. Like, for as much as he didn't play great in 22, he had really good years with Houston and did a good job coming off the bench. There's been a lot of names floated around. I do agree. I think Dylan Cease is pie in the sky.
And by the way, I don't think the White Sox are trading. One thing to note about the market here is there don't seem to be a lot of there aren't a lot of the teams that are entering a rebuild and have guys with multiple years they want to trade now. And that would include the White Sox, who, hey, I think they're going to trade Lucas Giolito and Lance Lynn, and hey, Joe Kelly's on the market, everybody. So,
well, we're gonna get to a former Dodger in a minute, but one of the things I've seen, of course, obviously these rumors, and they're almost never right? Like they're almost, but I've seen a lot of Marcus Stroman and Bellinger to the Astros. And before we talk about Bellinger, Brian first, then Andy, does Stroman do what you want? Like, are you happy with Marcus Stroman if he ends up an Astro at the end on August 2nd?
Yes.
Andy? Yeah. You don't need to expound on that. He's better than 3 of our starting pitchers right now.
Okay. The other thing has been the Bellinger thing. And I will go into the idea that I don't know that I'm a fan of it because I worry about toxicity in the clubhouse. However, am I overlooking that? And I'll start with Andy on that. And do you think Bellinger improves the team?
You're starting with me. Yeah, he improves the team. I think he's a left-handed bat who can play. He's got defensive flexibility, which I don't want to harp on this whole John Singleton thing again, but you can't bring up a guy with no defensive position in baseball where you only carry 13 position players. That's not a thing anymore. You get one of those. His name's Jose Abreu.
Yeah.
But baseball players are professionals. There is chemistry on baseball teams. You cannot quantify it. And I know the very hardcore analytics guys, not Brian, but the real ones out there it's only numbers. It's not real because you can't quantify it. I think that what it would involve is Altuve and Bregman sitting down with Bellinger and telling him, this is how we run this club. And that would be the end of it if they're all professionals. Bellinger is playing for a contract, not only for next season, but for the next 5 seasons. He has motivation to play well and play nice. The Astros are a professional clubhouse. They have brought in, let's call them head cases in the past. And Cody Bellinger, other than, being high a lot and talking out of his ass, hasn't done anything wrong. I mean, he's not a domestic abuser. We've had some experience with that.
Yeah.
He's not a guy that causes problems in a clubhouse. We've had some experience with that. He's just a guy that Astros fans don't like because he had a very strong opinion about something he was not entirely informed about. There was a lot of that going around in the summer and winter of 2020. So I think if you can get him and it doesn't cost you a lot, I don't see a lot of downside to it.
Brian?
Yeah, I agree with Andy there. It is hard for us on the outside to understand the clubhouse dynamics. And I try to avoid talking about it mostly because I don't have much to sort of add to it. The base principle I start with is the Astros are a veteran team that don't have a whole lot of clubhouse controversies that boil up and get into the media, in large part because they, as a set of players, seem to be pretty good at pulling in the right direction. And one reason Dusty Baker's won 2,000 games as a manager is he's really good at getting his teams to do that. And so it's not something I anticipate being a story more than 1 or 2 days at the beginning of this. Obviously, Twitter will be a story forever on that. But hey, Twitter may no longer exist after the next hour. So who knows?
Don't tell me that.
I mean, as far as Cody Bellinger, there are worse things tonight out than vampires.
Me.
Jake Myers.
I said it. I knocked it down. I know what you were doing. Me. 2 Blade references for you, everybody. Now, you guys would have a different opinion, though, if Joe Kelly was the name.
I mean, Joe Kelly deliberately tried to injure Michael Brantley. So my proposal for the clubhouse would be that Michael Brantley gets to try to deliberately injure Joe Kelly.
Yeah, the other reason for that is Joe Kelly is not an effective major league pitcher anymore. I can't imagine wasting the limited amount of personnel capital we have on Joe Kelly. That would be an issue.
Okay. Besides, our priority should be a left-handed pitcher. So I think Brooks Raley's available.
Is he pitching for anybody right now?
He's pitching for the Mets, and he's doing fine. And there are no vaccine requirements to get to Canada anymore. So
Okay.
He'll be part of the package that brings Verlander back.
I mean, it's going to be interesting, and we are going to be back on Tuesday next week, so that way we can wrap all of it up and really assess the team. I don't think there's a lot of benefit to us adding to the din of what could happen, especially since I'll be on an airplane when we normally record on Monday. But that does wrap us up. Now, before we go and before we get everybody's final takes, want to do a shout out to our guy, Astros Fans UK. He is in town. I'm going to be watching the Astros with him on Wednesday. So I'm going to do something that I have not done since I was a much younger man. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to drive to Houston, and I'm going to turn around after the game and drive right back to Austin, Texas. So wish me luck. And I will see my mother out of obligation. Go Astros.
Hey, it's the Rangers this week. It's a big series, but not that big a series. I'm not sure I'll believe the not that big of stuff this evening. Go Astros.
You give Bochy a message from me. It's open season on all suckheads. Go Astros.
I love that we have 17 Blade references in the movie. All right, guys.